Maxx Crosby is a name every NFL fan knows. A relentless pass rusher, a leader on the field, and one of the cornerstones of the Las Vegas Raiders defense. But what if I told you that his career nearly ended before it even began? It wasn't an injury, a missed opportunity, or bad luck. It was something far deeper and far more personal. Behind the highlight reels, the sacks, and the celebrations, Crosby was battling demons that could have taken everything away from him. This is the story of a young athlete who hit rock bottom before finding the strength to rise. It's a journey of pain, redemption, and ultimately triumph. But how does someone go from the brink of losing it all to becoming one of the most feared defenders in the NFL? To answer that, we must start at the very beginning, where Maxx Crosby's fight for his future truly began. Maxx Crosby wasn't born into a life of fame or fortune. He grew up in Colleyville, Texas, a place where football wasn't just a game. It was a way of life. For Crosby, sports were always a big part of his world. He loved football from the start, and it didn't take long for everyone around him to notice he had something special. But Crosby's journey wasn't smooth. Even as a kid, he faced challenges that shaped his outlook on life. He wasn't the biggest or the fastest player on the field, but he made up for it with relentless effort and heart. That attitude earned him a spot on his high school football team, where he started turning heads with his raw talent and unshakable determination. He was always the first one in and the last one out, recalls his high school coach Joe Willis. While other kids were heading home after practice, Max would be doing extra drills, working on his footwork, studying film. He had this hunger. You couldn't teach that. This relentless work ethic would become Crosby's trademark, but back then it was simply his way of keeping up with bigger, more developed players. By the time Crosby finished high school, his potential was undeniable. But instead of being recruited by big-name colleges, he ended up at Eastern Michigan University, a smaller school far from the spotlight. For some players, that would have been discouraging. For Crosby, it was just another challenge to overcome. "I remember the day he got that offer," says former teammate Jake Wallace. Most guys would have been disappointed, maybe even bitter about having to go so far from home to a smaller school. But Max, he just smiled and said, "Watch what I'm gonna do with this chance." That moment perfectly captured who Crosby was and who he would become. Not a blue-chip recruit with a silver spoon, but a warrior who would have to fight for every inch of respect he'd earn. Little did he know his time at Eastern Michigan would test him in ways he never imagined. His love for football would be pushed to its limits, and the battles he faced off the field would soon overshadow anything happening on it. Crosby was about to learn that talent could only take him so far. The real fight was just beginning. When Maxx Crosby arrived at Eastern Michigan University, he was ready to prove himself. He wasn't a five-star recruit or a player that scouts were raving about. He was just a hard-working kid with a dream. And on the field, that work ethic showed. Crosby quickly made an impact, becoming one of the team's standout defensive players. His combination of speed and strength turned heads, and by his sophomore year, it was clear he had NFL potential. But off the field? That was a different story. College life came with its own pressures, and for Crosby, those pressures started to build. Like many young athletes, he turned to partying as a way to escape stress. What started as casual drinking soon spiraled into something much darker. Alcohol became his crutch, a way to cope with the expectations, the struggles, and the doubts creeping into his mind. As his talent grew, so did his problems. Late nights, missed opportunities, and moments he couldn't even remember began to pile up. His coaches noticed, his teammates noticed, and eventually Crosby noticed too. He was on a dangerous path, one that could end his career before it even began. And then came the breaking point. Crosby knew deep down he couldn't keep living this way. His love for football wasn't enough to mask the reality of what was happening. If he didn't make a change, he wouldn't just lose his chance at the NFL. He'd lose everything. What happened next was a decision that would change the course of his life forever. For Maxx Crosby, the moment of truth came just months before the NFL draft. He looked in the mirror and realized the person staring back wasn't someone he wanted to be. The partying, the drinking, it had taken over his life. He wasn't just losing control, he was losing himself. If he wanted to have any shot at playing in the NFL, something had to change. So, in March 2020, Crosby made one of the hardest decisions of his life. He checked himself into rehab. For a young athlete with the weight of his dreams on his shoulders, admitting he needed help wasn't easy. But Crosby knew this wasn't just about football anymore. It was about saving his life. Rehab wasn't an instant fix. It was a grueling process that forced him to confront his struggles head-on. He had to rebuild himself from the ground up, facing the pain and the fears he'd been running from for years. But for the first time, Crosby found a sense of clarity. He realized he wasn't fighting this battle alone. His family, his friends, and his coaches believed in him even when he doubted himself. As the days turned into weeks, Crosby began to see a new version of himself, one who was stronger, more focused, and ready to take on whatever came next. By the time he left rehab, he wasn't just sober, he was determined. Determined to prove that his mistakes wouldn't define him and that his story wasn't over. The NFL draft was fast approaching, and Crosby was about to step into the biggest moment of his life. But this time, he wasn't just playing for a spot on a team, he was playing for redemption. The 2019 NFL Draft was a whirlwind of emotions for Maxx Crosby. For months, he'd been working tirelessly, proving to scouts that he was more than just another mid-tier prospect. But despite his undeniable talent, Crosby wasn't projected to go in the early rounds. Teams had questions about his consistency, about his small school background, and, for some, about his past. Day 1 of the draft came and went, so did Day 2. But on the third day, with the 106th overall pick in the 4th round, the Las Vegas Raiders took a chance on Crosby. For most players, being drafted that late might feel like a disappointment. For Crosby, it was everything. That phone call was more than just an invitation to the NFL. It was validation that his hard work and personal transformation were paying off. But being drafted was just the start of the battle. As a 4th-round pick, Crosby knew he'd have to fight for every snap, every tackle, and every sack. The pressure was on to prove that the Raiders hadn't made a mistake. And Crosby didn't just rise to the occasion, he shattered expectations. In his rookie year, Crosby was unstoppable. He finished the season with 10 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, and a reputation as one of the hardest-working players on the team. But what made his success even more impressive was the story behind it. Every time he stepped on the field, Crosby wasn't just playing for himself. He was playing for everyone who doubted him, everyone who supported him, and for the person he was becoming. His rookie season wasn't just a breakout, it was a statement. Maxx Crosby had arrived, and he wasn't going anywhere. Maxx Crosby's rookie season wasn't a fluke. It was just the beginning. In 2020, he proved to the NFL that he wasn't just another 4th-round pick. He was a force to be reckoned with. Week after week, Crosby showed up on the stat sheet, but more importantly, he showed up for his team. By the end of his rookie season, Crosby had put up incredible numbers: 10 sacks, 16 tackles for loss, and 14 quarterback hits. Not only that, but he forced 4 fumbles and earned AFC Defensive Player of the Week in Week 11. For a 4th-round pick, these numbers didn't just exceed expectations, they blew them out of the water. He became known for his relentless motor, never taking a playoff, always fighting to get to the quarterback. By his 2nd season, Crosby had solidified himself as a cornerstone of the Raiders' defense. His teammates saw him as a leader, and opposing offenses saw him as a nightmare. Double teams, chips, it didn't matter. Crosby's hunger to prove himself drove him to outperform even the most seasoned veterans. But what made Crosby's rise even more remarkable was the fact that he was still battling behind the scenes. Staying sober wasn't just a one-time decision, it was a daily commitment. There were moments of doubt, moments where the pressure felt overwhelming, but Crosby didn't let those moments define him. Instead, he used them as fuel. By 2021, Crosby wasn't just a name in the league, he was the name. Pro Bowl nods, league-wide respect, and a reputation as one of the fiercest edge rushers in the game cemented his place among the NFL's elite. And through it all, he never forgot where he came from or the battles he fought to get there. During the 2021 season, Crosby took things to another level. He led the NFL with an incredible 82 quarterback pressures, showing just how disruptive he could be. In Week 17 of that year, Crosby delivered a game for the ages: 2 sacks, 6 pressures, and 3 tackles for loss, helping the Raiders secure a playoff spot. Every sack wasn't just a statistic. It was proof that hard work, resilience, and a refusal to quit could change everything. Maxx Crosby wasn't just rising, he was inspiring. By this point, Crosby had earned back-to-back Pro Bowl selections in 2021 and 2022, cementing his place among the league's elite pass rushers. His ability to consistently disrupt opposing offenses put him in the same conversation as players like T.J. Watt and Micah Parsons. By the time Maxx Crosby had cemented himself as one of the NFL's top defensive players, his influence extended far beyond the football field. Crosby wasn't just a star player, he was becoming a leader, a role model, and a voice for those facing their own battles. His story of overcoming addiction resonated with fans and teammates alike. Crosby didn't shy away from his past. Instead, he embraced it. He used his platform to share his journey, offering hope to others who might be struggling with the same demons. In interviews, he spoke openly about the challenges of staying sober in the high-pressure world of professional sports, reminding everyone that it's okay to ask for help. On the Raiders, Crosby became a symbol of resilience. Younger players looked up to him, not just for his incredible work ethic on the field, but for his honesty and courage off it. He showed that true leadership isn't about being perfect. It's about owning your story and using it to inspire others. Crosby's impact wasn't limited to his teammates. He became an advocate for mental health and addiction recovery, working with organizations to raise awareness and support those in need. His message was simple but powerful. No matter how far you've fallen, there's always a way back. But Crosby wasn't done yet. As he continued to dominate on the field, his focus remained clear: to lead by example, to uplift his team, and to prove that second chances aren't just about redemption, they're about making a difference. Maxx Crosby's story is far from over. Even with everything he's accomplished, it feels like he's just getting started. On the field, Crosby has become one of the NFL's most consistent and dominant pass rushers. His speed, strength, and relentless effort make him a player that offenses have to plan around every single week. And yet, he's still hungry for more. Crosby has set his sights on the ultimate goal, bringing a Super Bowl to Las Vegas. He's already become a cornerstone of the Raiders' defense, but he knows that to truly cement his legacy, he'll need to help lead his team to the top. With each season, his determination to improve, both as a player and as a leader, only grows stronger. Across his career, Crosby has racked up over 30 sacks, countless quarterback hits, and a reputation as one of the hardest workers in the league. Advanced metrics back it up too. Crosby consistently ranks among the top 5 defensive players in pass rush win rate and total pressures. His relentless motor and dedication make him a player that offensive coordinators have to plan for every single week. But Maxx Crosby's impact goes beyond the game of football. His openness about his struggles with addiction has started conversations in the NFL and beyond. He's shown that even the toughest battles can be won with hard work, support, and a refusal to give up. For fans, teammates, and young players looking up to him, Crosby represents more than just a football star. He's a symbol of hope and resilience. Looking ahead, Crosby's journey isn't just about numbers or accolades. It's about the legacy he's building. One sack, one game, one moment at a time. Whether it's inspiring his teammates, helping his community, or continuing to dominate on Sundays, Maxx Crosby is proving that greatness isn't just about where you start. It's about where you're willing to go. Maxx Crosby's story isn't only about football, it's about resilience, redemption, and the power of second chances. From a young athlete on the brink of losing it all to one of the NFL's most feared defenders, Crosby's journey reminds us that success isn't always a straight path. Sometimes it's the struggles, the setbacks, and the moments of doubt that shape us into who we're meant to be. For Raider Nation, Crosby is more than just a star player. He's a leader, an inspiration, and a symbol of what it means to fight for something bigger than yourself. Whether it's his relentless drive on the field or his commitment to helping others off it, Crosby has shown that true greatness comes from within. But the question remains, what's next for Maxx Crosby? Will he lead the Raiders to the Super Bowl? Will his story inspire the next generation of athletes to overcome their own challenges? One thing's for sure, Crosby's journey is far from over and the best chapters are still being written. So, what do you think of Maxx Crosby's incredible rise? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more inspiring stories about the NFL's biggest stars.